How many entrepreneurs do we have in the room? Entrepreneurs? That's great. I hope all of you are excited about discussing access to capital for diverse entrepreneurs and also talking about how all of us in this room can become investors and contribute to the businesses that these entrepreneurs around the country are building. We're going to get started here in just another second, but I want to make sure everyone here is prepared and excited about opportunities to learn about investing and learning about capital, but also excited about potentially some opportunities to pitch whatever it is that you all are building and working on, and potentially finding some resources here in the room as well. We have a special guest with us, and so we'll go ahead and get started because don't want to keep him waiting. My name is Brandon Andrews. Our firm, Values Partnerships, runs a nationwide casting tour for Shark Tank, a television show focused on finding more diverse ideas, so making sure every sector of the economy and every type of business is covered, and also focused on finding more diverse voices, so making sure that the entrepreneurs pitching on the show reflect the audience that's watching at home, i.e. making sure that the entrepreneurs on the show look more like this room than potentially they have in the past. I meet thousands of entrepreneurs every year. I've traveled the country top to bottom, left to right, and I can definitely say unequivocally that the spark of innovation and the grit that you need to grow a business over time, those attributes exist in every community, every culture, every gender, and every zip code. But unfortunately, the resources needed to support those businesses are not always there. And so we're today going to talk about how do we get resources into the hands of those entrepreneurs, because the talent's there, the potential's there, the idea's there, the grit, the want to build businesses is there, but we have to get the resources into their hands. Some of those resources are capital, but others are mentorship and some others that we'll talk about today. Our honorary host, Congressman Gregory Meeks, definitely want to honor him in his absence, will be joining us a little bit later, but we do have another member of Congress, Senator Ben Cardin, who is the ranking member on the U.S. Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship. I began my career in Washington, D.C., working in the United States Senate, worked my way up from being an intern to being a staff assistant, and worked on some of the Small Business Committee work while I was there. They do incredible work there, and definitely happy to have Senator Cardin here with us. Senator Cardin is definitely committed to, one, supporting small businesses in this country in general, but if you even go to his website and look at it, he's committed to getting more resources into the hands of diverse entrepreneurs as well. So join me in welcoming Senator Ben Cardin as he greets us.
Well, to Brandon Andrews, first of all, thank you for your help and your extraordinary leadership, and for you giving opportunity for America to reach its potential. So thank you very much for all your help. To the panelists, we have a distinguished group of panelists. I'm going to charge my staff to make sure that we take your good ideas. We might take them then as our ideas, and as you know how this game works, and give us some thoughts for getting some bills passed in the United States Senate. So we really much appreciate that. Greg Meeks is one of the great leaders in the House of Representatives. He was caught having to vote on the floor of the House. As you know, the Democrats don't control the agenda. Next year, when the Congressional Black Caucus holds their meetings, Greg Meeks will be able to make sure he's here because he'll be able to control the floor agenda. So, and that will make a difference. But I thank the Congressional Black Caucus for all the work that they do. I served many years in the House of Representatives, and the Congressional Black Caucus was a tremendous resource for all of us in the Congress of the United States. So we thank them for their extraordinary work. Ryan Middleton's here with my staff. I want to thank him for, he has Prince George's County, and I say that because Prince George's County is one of the hubs for innovation in black companies in America, one of the great counties and it happens to be in the state of Maryland, which is, I appreciate. Reverend Jerome Stevens, I want to just acknowledge Reverend Stevens. He has done an incredible job in my office in setting up permanent relationships between small businesses, minority businesses, and our Senate office to make sure we do everything we possibly can for those connections. And I think Sean Moore, Staff Director of the Small Business and Entrepreneurship for the Democrats, I thank him for his help, and as a person you should know because you can use him as a resource in your work and what we do in the United States Senate. This panel is extraordinarily important. It is one of the most important objectives we have is opportunity in America. And when you look at the topic on venture capital access by black businesses, we have problems in America. And we need to be focused on how we can deal with this issue. I'm going to mention this several times. Tomorrow in Baltimore at Morgan State University, we will be holding a small business hearing, a Senate small business hearing on access to capital by minority small businesses, because we know we have challenges. Yours with venture capital and innovation, and what we'll be doing tomorrow, let's share our ideas and let's figure out a way to do better, because we must do better. First, because the values of America are our strength. That's what makes us the great nation we are. We profess equal opportunity for all, but that's not the reality. And we need to make it the reality. It's particularly true on startup companies. When you look at the opportunity of startup companies to be able to get capital, venture capital, there is great inequity here in America today. Black firms have a much more challenging time to get traditional venture capital funds. And one of the reasons, and Brandon alluded to it, one of the reasons, you look at the face of venture capital today, only 2% in senior management are African Americans. So there is an inequity here in this country that we need to deal with. Black startup firms are more likely to fail because they don't have adequate startup capital. And they're starting in a difficult position. Minority firms don't have the same access to capital through venture capital or banking, so they turn to other avenues for funds. The less regulated, more expensive use of our credit cards and things like that, that again puts them at a disadvantage. These are all issues that we need to find ways to deal with. Now, we need to do this for several reasons. One, clearly, the values of America, equal opportunity for all. But we have a huge wealth disparity in this country. The statistics I've seen is that it's even greater than 12-1, the wealth of black Americans versus the white Americans. 12-1 difference in wealth accumulation, transfer of wealth upon generation, opportunities for innovation, very much affected by that. And then for the purposes of our economy, we're robbing our economy of its full potential if we don't allow the innovation of a large segment of our population to be able to produce in our economy as they certainly can. So for all of those reasons, this panel is particularly important. And I thank you all for being here. The hurricane didn't scare you away. The Senate consideration of Judge Kavanaugh didn't scare you away. You're here to find solutions for our community. I can promise you this. We are looking for ways to improve the programs. We know that the 7A program, the bedrock for the Small Business Administration, extremely important program. Minority participation is nowhere near it needs to be. We know that. We like to look at the microloan programs, much better. So let's learn from what has worked, and let's build on that, and let's correct the system so that we can and truly live up to America's strength and values and make sure that all people in this country have opportunity. Let's make sure that black innovation in America has the opportunity to succeed that will not only help the community itself, but will help all of us in succeeding. So I'm proud to be here today just to tell you thank you for having this panel, and thank you to Greg Meeks for being the leader on this, and we look forward to seeing your results. And if you happen to be free tomorrow, join us at Morgan State University as we have Chapter 2 of Access to Capital by Minority Firms. Thank you all very much.
Well, thank you again, Senator Cardin, for joining us today, and thank you so much for your leadership on the U.S. Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship. He's doing an incredible job removing some of the barriers, not only for firms to access capital, but also for firms to work with the government, which is incredibly important. I mentioned that I spent some time working on Capitol Hill. While I was there, I met a gentleman by the name of Joshua Dubois. I was working in the Senate. He was working for then Senator Obama. He went to the White House and ran President Obama's Office of Faith and Community Partnerships, and then decided to leave government and become an entrepreneur. He is co-founder and CEO of Gauge. It's a mobile market research platform, which is the sponsor of today's panel. Joshua is going to come up and give us a few words.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Good afternoon, everyone. Y'all can do a little better than that. Good afternoon, everyone. We are around so many brilliant black people in one space talking about access to capital. That is a good thing and a big thing, and there's lots of solutions that I know are going to percolate over the course of this conversation. So very briefly about Gauge and about me. So worked for President Obama for a number of years. I led his Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships in the White House. Brandon was on the Hill working in the Senate on Foreign Relations. I left after about 5 years and started a consulting company, Values Partnerships, which I currently run with Brandon to this day. We lead social impact and marketing campaigns for a range of clients, from ABC's Shark Tank to Paramount Pictures to the Oprah Winfrey Network and Google and more. In the course of that work, we realized that our clients and the brands that we were working with or exposed to often made big, public, messy mistakes, largely because they weren't talking with the right people. Anybody see that Pepsi Kendall Jenner ad? Or the Dodge Ram where they were using Dr. King to sell trucks over in the Super Bowl, and so on and so forth. We see these big, the H&M thing, we see these mistakes all the time. And we also more positively see brands that want to stay ahead of the curve on social trends and don't seem to be doing that. And we realize it's because our market research system in this country is incomplete. Lots of folks do focus groups with whomever they can bring in a room, and they ask those people questions that they really should be asking experts on that subject matter or influencers. And we decided to solve this problem. So we created an app called Gauge. On Gauge, we curate focus groups with different groups of influencers and experts from different demographics and psychographics, whether it's African Americans or the Latinx community, LGBT, tech consumers, business leaders, and so forth. We use AI to process the results and give much better data to our clients than they ever receive in a focus group. Would love for you all to download Gauge. Any iPhone users in here? Lots of iPhones around the room. Go to getgauge.com/download to download the iPhone app or sign up for our Android release, which is coming up soon. So far, it's really taken off. Companies from NBC Universal to A&E networks are already using Gauge. When you take a survey, we compensate you via PayPal or Cash App for sharing your opinion via video message or a text message in just a few minutes. Right now, I think there's a survey from Nike on Colin Kaepernick, on VR, AR headsets, and more. So go to getgauge.com/download. Again, it's getgauge.com/download. And we're excited for you to join Gauge and be an influencer and expert in our network. Enjoy the conversation today. Ask Brandon about Shark Tank too, because we do run this casting tour, and we'll be starting that up next season. And look forward to growing in success with all of you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you so much again, Joshua. And, of course, thanks again to Senator Ben Cardin for joining us today. It's incredibly important to not only have products and services on the shelves, but to have products, services, and have content that actually speaks to us, products and services that we actually want to buy, products and services that aren't offensive, again, back to the Pepsi Kendall Jenner thing, and other examples. So definitely appreciative that we have Gauge and are able to continue to build that. One of the first things that you learn as an entrepreneur is to build a relationship with your customers, listen to them, and actually do what they tell you to do. Right now, all of you in this room are my customers, our customers, as far as the panel is concerned. So I want to hear directly from you. Right now, pinned to the top of my profile on Twitter is a Twitter poll. I'm going to teach you something. If you guys didn't know, you guys can do polls on Twitter for free. And if you're an entrepreneur doing customer validation or trying to find product market fit, it's a good way to do it. For those of you on Twitter, go to www.twitter.com/BrandonTalk. The poll is, again, at the top of my profile. I want to hear what all of you think is the best way for diverse entrepreneurs to access capital. Do you think it's loans? Do you think it's venture capital? Do you think it's crowdfunding? Or do you think it's bootstrapping? Which one of those options do you think is the best option for diverse entrepreneurs to access capital? And that'll help guide the conversation today. While you're doing that, I'm going to give each one of our panelists 45 seconds to a minute to quickly introduce themselves, say what the name of their company is, and we'll move on down the line. And then once our final panelist is finished with their short introduction, and again, we'll get into more depth in the conversation, so make this short. But after that, I will reveal the results of the Twitter poll and talk about those a little bit with you all before we dive in with the panel, all right? So again, if you're on Twitter, go to @BrandonTalk at the top of my page and take the survey. And with that, Fatima, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Fatima Diko. I'm the CEO of Jetpack. We bring people the things they need in less than 15 minutes. Today, our average delivery time is 7 minutes. And I'm looking forward to talking about how I was able to raise funds for my startup.
That's great.
Hi, my name is Avia Wen. I am a part of the 2% that you just heard about. I am the Vice President of Business Development at Trimantium Capital and the co-founder and managing partner of the firm's 2065 Fund, which we've created to help democratize access to capital for female and minority founders.
Hello, everyone. My name is Greg Bishop. I'm the Commissioner for the Department of Small Business Services in New York City. We are an agency that's tasked with actually helping businesses start, expand, and operate. So I'll be talking to you today about how government can actually help entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs of color.
Hi, I'm Gayla Jennings O'Byrne. I had a 17-year career on Wall Street at JP Morgan, and I left because I decided I had to be part of the solution in getting venture capital to women startups. And so I'm a venture capitalist. I'm here because I want to invest in you, and we'll share more about that in a moment.
Hi, I'm Charles Cantu. I'm a serial entrepreneur, successful exits, several. Have also built businesses within some of the Fortune 500. I own a holding company. I work in partnership with a capital access group. And I'm here to talk about how I've done it myself and how I might be able to help some of you.
Okay, give a round of applause to our panel. All of these panelists are doing incredible work, either building businesses or funding businesses, in some cases doing both. So definitely appreciate you all taking the time to come and join us here in Washington, D.C. at the 2018 Congressional Black Caucus Foundation Annual Legislative Conference. Now to the poll results. Has everyone voted? Anyone not voted? You didn't vote? You voted? Okay, you were the first one. All right. So poll results, again, the question was, what is the best way for diverse entrepreneurs to access capital? And all of you, if you're on your phone or on your computer, go to my profile again. You all can see the poll results in real time. But the question was, again, the best way for diverse entrepreneurs to access capital. Is it loans? Is it venture capital? Is it crowdfunding? Or is it bootstrapping? Loans is a distant fourth with 6%. Oh. Yeah. Just like an entrepreneur, you get hit, but you don't fall down. All right. Loan is a distant fourth at 6%. Bootstrapping, and so that is selling your product, selling your service, and then reinvesting what you can back into the business to grow the business, came in at 13%. And then the next two were fairly close. Venture capital is second with 38%, and this audience thinks the best way for diverse entrepreneurs to access capital is crowdfunding. So I want to hear from you really quickly. Who picked crowdfunding, and why do you think that's the best way for you to access capital? Guys, can we get the mic for folks? Anybody? Raise your hand. Who? 44% of y'all picked crowdfunding, so somebody raise your hand. Go ahead. Yeah. You guys don't mind bringing them? Yeah, just wait on the mic 1 second. All right, just give us your name, my man, and if you have a business, tell us what the business name is, and then tell us why you think crowdfunding is the best way.
Yeah, my name is Adrian Mohammed. I have a small business in Southern California. It's called OmniPro Incorporated. It's a copy service. We do document processing.
Okay. People need documents processed.
Right, yep, they do. That's why we got a business right now. I chose crowdsourcing because, given social media and given the range of access, the amount of people that are connected right now, crowdsourcing is kind of the easiest way to aggregate a decent amount of money. The kind of money that you would get from a microloan or a small business loan, you could crowdsource just through your network and the networks of others. So that's why I went with that.
Okay, sounds good to me. Yeah, give him a round of applause. Thank you. Before we leave the audience, who picked venture capital? Since they were so close, it was 38% to 44%. Who picked venture capital? Who thinks venture capital is the best way for diverse entrepreneurs to access capital? You do? Okay, go ahead and give it to my brother in the bow tie then.
I'm not going to say it's the best way, but I'm going to say that it's perhaps the most efficient way to raise capital, because it allows you to go to less sources to actually get the resources. You have less people looking over your shoulder to help you when you're trying to run your business.
Okay. Well, you don't have anybody looking over your shoulder if you bootstrap, but I get it. I get it. Yeah, definitely give my brother in the bow tie a round of applause as well. All right, so there's a lot of options there in terms of ways to access capital, and really it's going to come down to who you are and where your business is. It's really kind of an individualized thing, but I think it's great to hear from all of you that crowdfunding is what you think is the best way to access capital. We're going to talk about that a little bit more here in a second, but first I want to do a little bit of scene setting. Senator Cardin alluded to it in saying that entrepreneurs from our community aren't getting access to the capital that they need. Gayla has some stats to share with us to kind of set the scene, and then we'll go into the conversation from there. So Gayla, do you mind teeing that up?
Yeah, happy to. Let me just first start by saying I love the makeup of this panel. There are 3 women, 3 sisters, and 2 brothers. This is the future people. Now let me also say another few words about the future. There are not enough of us that are venture capitalists, and we need to. So I'm going to claim it. And I left a good job at JP Morgan to be one of those venture capitalists. So my language is, I'm a venture capitalist. I want your language to be, I am an investor and I'm investable. Can we all just say that once just so it gets out in the universe? I'm an investor and I'm investable. And I wanted to start there because this conversation we're about to have is beautiful in that we didn't have loans as the top of the access points and products. And it shouldn't be, because we need to start accessing venture capital and crowdfunding. For female entrepreneurs, they have the most success on crowdfunding. So ladies, if you are not tapping into crowdfunding, please do so, because you are far outpacing the men on being able to raise money. Venture capital, $148 billion was invested last year through venture capital. And your brother was right here when he said in some ways it's almost easier money, in that people are going to invest in good ideas and they're going to invest in people they believe in. So some of the noise that happens through some of the other products and institutional requirements, some of that goes out the window when you have a good product and people believe that you can actually get that company off the ground. So you're absolutely right that we need to start changing the conversation to venture capital and crowdfunding and other access. So I'm so glad we're having this conversation today. But I also want to level set and say that while we are investable and we are investors, we've got to change our mindset such that we are not asking for handouts, but that we are inviting people to the opportunities in the businesses we are building. Because if you look at job creation and the businesses that have been created, it is coming from our communities. And actually, women of color, black women leading the pack, are the fastest growing entrepreneurial population in America today.
Clap for black women. I was waiting for you to do it yourselves, but go ahead, Gayla.
And just a few more factoids to sort of level set this. Not only are we the fastest growing population of entrepreneurs, but we are creating jobs. So while white men lost about 1.2-ish since 2008, right, during the housing crisis, women have been net adders to jobs in the economy. So when we want to have a conversation about how we stimulate the economy, they just need to come talk to us, right? But a few more things I want to throw out there as we have this conversation. Where are these companies coming from? It's Texas, it's Georgia, it's North Carolina. So let's not worry and get caught up in the Silicon Valley-isms, because it's happening in our communities. And we can invest in ourselves and each other. I'm going to do a workshop right after this, and I'll talk more about that. But I wanted to make sure we had a level setting that, A, this is not a handout. We are inviting people to the businesses that we are growing. We are investable, and we are all investors. Think about the tithing that you do. Think about Cousin JoJo that hit you up at the family reunion this summer for that $200 for that really good business idea he had. We got this. We absolutely got this.
Thank you so much, Gayla. All right, so Gayla has set the stage so we all understand that we're all investors and we're all investable, but now we need to get an understanding of how this ecosystem of capital actually works. Who in here understands how the ecosystem works? Who understands how all the money flows? Anybody? A couple people? Okay. You work in the business, so. I want to spend a couple of minutes here just explaining how the money works. Where does a venture capital firm get money to be able to invest in an entrepreneur? How does that actually happen? Avia, would you mind talking about some of the ways that VC firms actually get funds? And then I'd like to, because we have a couple of points in the process here, maybe you can talk about how VC firms get the funding. Gayla, you can potentially talk about what VCs are looking for when they are searching for investments. And then Fatima, you as an entrepreneur would love to hear you talk about what it means as an entrepreneur to actually have funding flow to you so that folks in here get a full understanding of the money cycle of the ecosystem and how the process actually works. So Avia, talk a little bit about, where does this money, VC of $148 billion invested, where does that money actually come from?
So typically, most of the money is coming from, can you guys hear me? Most of the money is coming from high net worth individuals that are looking to diversify their portfolios. So my fund is a $10 million fund. It's a micro fund, which means it's on the smaller side and it's very focused. But our funding has come from high net worth individuals that I'm unable to disclose the names of, but that's where it's coming from. And I would say that's typically the case for most venture funds. There are some that are government-backed or city-backed, and then there's also family offices that invest in startups, and they're also a part of the venture capital ecosystem, and they come from high net worth individuals. So it's just coming from a lot of people with a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much for that, Avia. Now, Gayla and potentially Charles, I know you do some investing as well. Would love to have you comment on this. As a venture capitalist, how do you go out and get the money from a high net worth individual, or potentially from like a pension fund if they're investing, or a private equity fund if they're potentially investing, or they're a fund of funds? How do you actually go out and make that transaction happen? And then once you have it, what are you looking for from entrepreneurs? Either one of you can start.
Yeah, so the fund that I work with, I'm the tech guy, right? So I'm the one that does the vetting on, is this an investable opportunity, or do they really have technology or not? So, but I will tell you how they come to me and pitch me, and generally it's, you know, hey, we got an idea, here's a prospectus, or here's a deck, and we'll go through a process of NDA, et cetera. And then I'll review the opportunity and tell them if I'm interested in having a meeting or not. And then we'll go through the series of meetings and decide whether I'm going to cut a check or not.
Okay, now, brother, break it down. What's an NDA and what's a prospectus?
Yes. So the NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. It essentially says that I'm not going to share their information, or I'm not going to go out and build the idea or build upon the idea that they have. And then the prospectus generally tells me what, you know, the business is going to use my money for, where it's going to be allocated, et cetera, and what the growth rate is going to be, and when I can see my money return.
So ultimately, you're looking for a return. That's it.
Always.
Okay. Gayla, anything else to add there?
Yeah, I'll go back to the original question, which is where venture capital money comes from, and sort of give you a little tiny historical perspective. You know, when venture capital started, it started in Silicon Valley around the semiconductor and the growth of the computer industry. And what you had were then a lot of guys that made money in Silicon Valley, and when they exited their companies, i.e. they sold them or put them on the stock market as public offerings, initial public offerings, they created a lot of wealth for themselves. And they said, I did pretty good at my own company, and I've got some money, now I'm going to start a fund and go invest in other companies and other entrepreneurs and make more money. While they were doing that, we were getting the management trainee program started at PepsiCo or IBM, or getting that good job with benefits, right? So we weren't actually in that space when the whole venture capital industry was coming up. We were going that management route, the corporate America route, good job civil service route, right? Government agencies. So we weren't really in that space. So a lot of the venture capital firms that you see started from, let's just call it rich white guys that had some money to put together and go and make some more investments. And then you had institutional guys that were doing investing as well. So for a long time, we haven't been in that space. Now those shops that invest, many of them can be like 200 million, $1 billion. I think there's one out of China that's like $500 billion fund. Those are still, even with those dollars, they're kind of small shops, so it's kind of a closed network. So even us getting hired in to go work at those funds is one of the last thresholds of where we're getting in on Wall Street. We're in investment banking, we're in munis, we're in mortgage back, right? We're in commercial loans and whatnot, but we haven't sort of hit that private equity, that venture capital space. So even me with 17 years experience on Wall Street, me trying to knock on the door and get a job from one of those guys would kind of be difficult even at this age. So what I had to do is say, I'm just gonna build my own fund. So how'd I get here today? I'm on Bolt Bus. How am I paying for this? Because what I'll be doing is raising funds and then investing it. There's not a real salary for me. So I'm actually living off my JP Morgan stock that I earned over those 17 years. Well, guess what? One of the first people I said that needs to invest in, I said, JP Morgan, you know me, I grew up here. You guys need to invest in me. And I said, and you're kind of already in it because I'm cashing in my stock every quarter to pay for this and keep a roof over my head. So as a industry, we haven't been in this space, and that's sort of some of the historical background to this. But here's the beautiful thing, and why I believe this is our moment, is because mainstream investors are looking for other places for which their money can perform and provide them a return. And they can't keep writing a check to the S&P and to Google, right? If they already got Google stock, how much more Google stock do they need in their portfolio? And so they know statistically, with all of the companies and ideas that are coming out of this community, that there's got to be some home runs here. So they're actually looking for you. So we got sort of a mismatch here. So when I'm trying to raise money now for my fund, and I'm going out and saying, listen, I want 25 million, and I'm going to help you find all of us, because they don't know us, right? They're actually in a place where they're like, that sounds like a good one for me. Because again, I don't want to keep investing in IBM. I love blue chip, but you know, how much blue chip stock can I have in my portfolio? So again, this is why this is not a handout. This is an invitation. And we're very clear, even in how we're raising money, that they have to be aligned to our values. And so people said, oh, it's really hard raising money. I said, it really isn't. I said, but what it is making sure that we get the right investors in here.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you this, and I'll stop here. There is some stupid money running around right now. And when I say stupid, I was at a United Nations conference a couple months ago. 500 people was in the General Assembly, right, you know, that curved room, talking about blockchain for impact. Half the guys that had flown in on private jets and whatnot, different countries, right, representing different sovereign nations and royalty, and they're all talking about blockchain and impact and how it's going to revolutionize communities of color and blah, blah, blah. And you know how you do after you've been at a conference for a while, your mind starts to wander. So my mind wandered, and I started counting black folks. That's what I do when I get bored. How many of us in the room, right? How many of us in the room? Never enough, right? And I got enough hands and toes I can usually count. But these guys are looking for investments. They're looking for us. So where's the money coming from, and what are they looking for? It's in this room. But we got to have our act together, right? We got to have our teams. We need to be able to communicate that we can get the market share that we say we're going to get, and that we can get the right people and products out the door.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I think it's really, yeah, you can give her a round of applause. I think it's a couple really important points there. One, Abia said high net worth individuals very often will pool their funds and create a fund and then go out and begin investing. There are some publicly financed funds as well, but a lot of high net worth individuals. And then you have folks like Gayla who are actually entrepreneurs themselves. So I think it's important for the entrepreneurs in the room that are doing fundraising to understand that very often when you are going to pitch a VC or pitch an angel investor or pitch someone to potentially get an investment in your business, you're very often pitching someone who's had to go out and do the same thing that you did, but just with maybe a couple additional zeros at the end of their fundraise, or at the end of their raise. You may be raising $1 million, and they may have raised, 50 million or 100 million for their fund. It's important, I think, to understand the mindset there, because they're not only looking for a return, but they're entrepreneurs as well, and so they have a significant amount of skin in the game. Abi, you have one thing quickly to add?
Yes, and going off what Gayla said about reaching out to JP Morgan, I just want all of you to know that there are other initiatives that are popping up, like Goldman Sachs just launched a $500 million fund, and they solely want to invest in female founders, female investors, and so I think that there are initiatives like that that we can all take advantage of.
Yeah, definitely. And there is a mismatch, a mismatch. There are investors, folks that are doing it professionally, institutional investors, angel investors, but then also everyday investors, retail investors that are looking for better ways to get a return on their money, and investing in startups, investing in entrepreneurs is certainly a way to do that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So in terms of how the money flows and how the ecosystem works, you have VCs who raise money from high net worth individuals or from pension funds, et cetera. They get the funding, they pool it, they decide what their theory of investment is going to be, and then they start seeking deal flows. So they start seeking pitches from entrepreneurs like Fatima here. So Fatima, would love to hear from you. How do you as an entrepreneur interact with investors, and then we'll talk about the institutional first and talk about some of the crowdfunding stuff here in a second, but how do you as an entrepreneur engage with an institutional investor or an angel investor as the money flows from, again, high net worth individuals to entrepreneurs who are looking for investments?
I think that's a great point. When I'm pitching to investors, so if someone's hearing my pitch for the company, they're going to invest in one of two things. They're either going to invest in traction or they're going to invest in the vision. So when you're in really an early stage phase in your company, you need to show them that you're the right person to take their funds and grow a business in a way that no one else could. Otherwise, why would VCs even be necessary in that chain of command? And so I think there are two things really that I have to get across really quickly. The first is the total addressable market, so how big is this problem I'm solving? And then the second is my competitive advantage, whether that's some sort of capability, so I have something that other people don't have, or positional advantage. I can do something that other people can't do. So relatively quickly, you have to be able to convince someone of that so that they can give you funds and then you can generate the returns.
That's actually one of the first questions I asked. What's your competitive advantage? Because I want to know that your company has barriers to entry and that everybody can't do what you're doing.
Yeah, that's great. Greg, I want to bring you into the conversation now. You are in New York City, and you're charged with helping businesses, especially small businesses, as the commissioner for the Office of Small Business Services. When someone comes to you and says, hey, I want to raise money for my business, or I'm looking for funds, what do you say to them? How do they get prepared for that? And are there government resources that they should be trying to tap into?
Sure. And certainly I was surprised at the poll at the beginning, because one of the things that we tell entrepreneurs, so for example, you've heard, you need to be ready. You need to understand your business. You need to be able to talk about your business in a very eloquent fashion. That way you can convey that you actually know what you're doing and you are the person that that person should invest in. Typically our services, and we use a lot of federal resources to actually help us get capital to small businesses. What we actually do is push individuals to look at either crowdfunding or loans. And the reason why I say that, I may be the minority, well, I'm actually a minority, but anyway. In a majority. Yeah, I usually say that is because even though people seem to be adverse with taking out loans, and I'll tell you how government can actually help make that process easier, you own 100% of your company. When you start involving, and when you have to think about it, are you in a position at this point in your stage of your company to bring in an outsider, right? Because that's what you're really talking about. Individuals are putting money into your company, and they want to make sure that they actually get that return. They're not going to leave you alone. They're going to check in every single month to make sure that you are on track in terms of what you said. And if you are not ready to have that type of relationship, then you should not be looking at having other investors in your company. So the only other way you can do that is either you take out a loan or you look to crowdfund. Now, it's funny that crowdfunding actually was number one, because we at the City of New York, we realized that we need to find different ways to actually connect capital to entrepreneurs. We know for sure that entrepreneurs, especially people of color, have faced many hurdles in terms of getting capital through our capital markets. So we work a lot with lenders. We have over 40 lenders in New York City. Last year, we were able to connect entrepreneurs to over $53 million in capital. But I will say most of that capital came through CDFIs. And CDFIs means those are community development financial institutions. And for those who are not familiar with that term and not familiar with those organizations, because you probably won't, they're not your typical banks. It's literally banks are required by the federal government through it's the Community Reinvestment Act to actually invest in small businesses. And because a bank may not want to spend the amount of time to give you a $10,000 loan, they literally will take $100 million or $500 million, whatever it is, and capitalize a CDFI. And that CDFI is responsible for getting that capital to small businesses. So in New York and across the country, there are CDFIs like Axion, et cetera, who are doing that work. They're looking for entrepreneurs like yourself. They're providing additional technical assistance. And what we do with the City of New York, we actually walk you through the process of applying for that loan. So we rely a lot on CDFIs. Over 67% of our capital was through CDFIs. 15% was through crowdfunding. And then 14%, believe it or not, were through banks. And then we have community financial institutions These are your community banks, about 3%, and then we get to the 1%, which is the private investors. So government can play a part. We launched, and I'll wrap up in a second, we launched an initiative specifically for women entrepreneurs in New York City. So for those, New York City is the most resource city, so I'm going to put a plug. If you're an entrepreneur and you're not doing business in New York, you should, because there's a lot of access to capital here in New York. But we focus a lot on developing programs for underrepresented groups. So women entrepreneurs, for example, we launched a program called We Fund Crowd. And it is a partnership that we have with Kiva Zip. And literally, Kiva Zip allows you to borrow up to $10,000. And the city has made a commitment to put in the first 10%. So that's up to $1,000 of that $10,000 commitment. And we actually, through our sister agency, the Economic Development Corporation, we just released our RFP the city will guarantee $10 million to a venture capital organization who's looking to invest in underrepresented groups. So when you talk about high net worth individuals, you also have government playing in that space, because we recognize, the senator said that it's about 2%. The numbers that I saw in 2015, venture capital firms that are led by people of color is 1.5%. So we want to use the bully pulpit of New York City to not only get capital out there, but also to change the face of the VC community to ensure that we get capital to communities of color.
Yeah, and I know that's something that, again, our honorary host, Congressman Gregory Meeks, has advocated for many years. One, having more diverse fund managers who are often fund of funds for VCs, and then two, getting more of us into the pipeline to potentially be VCs. And just repeat that, I want to make sure everybody in here heard it. If folks, so you're saying that if someone is interested in New York City in putting together a fund that invests in diverse entrepreneurs, that the city will then provide what for them?
So through the Economic Development Corporation, they released in August $10 million. So the city will put in $10 million into, if there is anyone who actually has a fund, Gayla and I are going to talk after that, whose their specific goal is to invest in companies of underrepresented groups, including women entrepreneurs, the city would actually help with capitalizing that fund.
Well, I got $5 if anybody else wants to put in. That's an incredible opportunity, though, in the city of New York, and I know there are other cities around the country that are doing similar things, but we very often in our community just don't know about those opportunities, and certainly I'm glad that Gayla and Avi are here. They're venture capitalists, and Charles at the end, maybe they can take advantage of it.
And just one note about the RFP that he's talking about. The deadline for that, I think, is something like November 5th, so you've got some time. I have looked at the application, and it is not crazy. So, don't let it intimidate you.
That was unsolicited.
And probably not well said, but it's not a lengthy or burdensome application, so do really take a look at it on their website.
I think that the most powerful thing that we can do in hopes to fund more minority and female founders is creating more minority and female investors.
Yeah,
It's
definitely
essential.
agree. Well, that's a great segue into the next part of the conversation. So we've talked about crowdfunding a good bit. Greg, you mentioned it as one of the recommendations that you give to entrepreneurs in the city of New York who are looking for capital. It came up obviously as the top choice from this audience in terms of ways for diverse entrepreneurs to raise capital. So let's talk about crowdfunding a little bit. Let me kind of do some scene setting here. There are two primary types of crowdfunding. So anybody heard of Kickstarter? Are you familiar with Kickstarter, Indiegogo? Yeah, so that's rewards-based crowdfunding. So you put in a certain amount of money to the business, or you get the opportunity to buy the product at a discount in exchange for putting capital into the business, allowing them to be able to do their first run of whatever their product is, or enabling them to be able to scale whatever it may be. In exchange for the money that you put in, you get a reward. So you get a discounted product or discounted service, t-shirt, hat, mug, whatever they want to give out. There's another type of crowdfunding called equity crowdfunding, which is relevant for this conversation because it's something that was enacted by government. So government actually had to change the law, had to change the rules to make it happen. And with equity crowdfunding, not only do you, in some cases, get the rewards, or you get the t-shirt and the hat, backpack, whatever, but you also get a requisite amount of equity in the company. Now, if you're investing $20 in the company, you're only gonna get, $20 worth of equity, but that's better than nothing. And what's so significant about equity crowdfunding is that prior to the laws being changed, and this is something that we can thank President Obama for, he signed the Jobs Act, the Jumpstart Our Businesses Act, Business Startups Act in 2012. I personally think it should be, especially for communities of color, in his top 5 accomplishments while he was in office, because it literally unleashes the $1 trillion of buying power. Nielsen comes out with that 1.2 trillion number every year that really doesn't mean anything. It just means we can just buy a whole bunch of stuff. But taking that $1.2 trillion and allowing black and brown folks to invest in entrepreneurs in their community, something that most people weren't able to do prior to the law changing, is really significant. And this is why it's significant. Who's familiar with the term accredited investor in here? A few people? Okay, so in any given year, or well, not in any given year, in this year, to be an accredited investor in the United States, you have to qualify by net worth, have a net worth over $1 million, not including your primary place of residence. To qualify by income, as a single person, you have to make $200K in consecutive years. As a couple, you have to make $300K in consecutive years. As you might imagine, that is a very small percentage of U.S. households, somewhere around 3% in any given year. So 97% of the population prior to this law changing could not legally invest in startup companies or in startup companies at all, or companies before they were listed on a stock exchange. So before it's listed on NASDAQ, before there's an initial, an IPO, and it's listed on a stock exchange. That means that 97% of the population wasn't able to take advantage of the wealth building opportunity that is there, and also the learning opportunity that's there with investing in startup companies. This is a significant change, and when Gayla was saying everyone in here can be and should be consider themselves an investor, she was referring to the change there. We've had our honorary host join us, Congressman Greg Meeks. I'll give him a second to get ready, but we'll have him come up and give us some remarks here in just a second. But we'll continue down the conversation about crowdfunding here. You can now, if you're over 18 in the U.S., invest in a startup company pre-IPO. Now, all investments have risks, so you could potentially lose that money too, so we have to be fair. But before President Obama signing the Jobs Act into law, he didn't even have the option of choosing whether or not you wanted to make that investment. You know how some people say, man, I wish I had known about Facebook or Google back in the day. I wish I had known Steve Jobs. I would have invested in Apple back in the day. The reality is, even if you had known Steve Jobs or known about Apple, you wouldn't have been able to invest. Literally, you were legally barred from being able to invest because, again, 97% of the population are not accredited investors. And so to continue the conversation there, Fatima, I know you've used equity crowdfunding to raise money for your startup, Jetpack. Tell us a little bit more about Jetpack, and then maybe tell us a little bit more about the story of how you ran the crowdfunding campaign successfully.
Awesome. So I'll start a little bit with my story because it's relevant to my whole fundraising process. So I was born in Mali, and I came to New York City when I was 5. Studied engineering, went to P&G. So when I decided to leave P&G and then do the startup thing, my parents were like, in true African fashion, like, this is not why we came here. P&G is great. You're getting a salary. What is this entrepreneurship thing? And so I, did that for a bit, and then ultimately went to Stanford Business School, which is in the building right now, another Stanford business student. So in my mind at that time, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to the West Coast. There's gonna be all this money just waiting for me on Sand Hill Road, and I'm gonna grow my company, and it's gonna be the first Black unicorn. I get there, I pitched over 100 investors at the time, and we got no's all across the board. No, 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 no. To give you a background into what we do, so we essentially are a last mile on-demand service. So we are focused on college campuses, and we give students backpacks filled with the most important items like tampons, phone chargers, chewable coffee. And then essentially what you do is you hop on our mobile app, tell us what you need, and then we locate the nearest student who's already walking around with a backpack with the products, which we get for free because companies are marketing those samples. And if you think about it, it's the fastest way to make any delivery because the largest companies don't benefit from economies of scale during the last mile because they have to know the area, they have to have access into the buildings. And so the best way to do that is to use the people who are in the area, students. So we did that, and I pitched this to investors before we had any users. This was just an idea at the time. And my dad's like, wait, so we came here and you're selling toothpaste out of backpacks. I was like, but at scale, there's a mobile app. So he was not at all thrilled about that. Pitched it up and down Sand Hill Road. They were like, if I'm a student, why wouldn't I just purchase tons of products and save it in my room? And I'm like, have you spoken to any college student? And so at that time, I was introduced to equity crowdfunding. I don't know if many people are familiar with the different stages of fundraising. So it typically starts with a friends and family round, which, like for me at the time, my friends, my family could not just write a $100,000 check for me to start the company. And so that's
Again, because they weren't accredited investors.
right. And then and so that's usually where most people don't even have the opportunity to begin. So a lot of people are talking about like, how can we create a more level playing field for like seed rounds or Series A? But like, let's just talk about the beginning. Like if I don't have money to build a mobile app, to acquire users, how can I even talk about procuring seed funds? And so that is, a big part of why equity crowdfunding to me is going to democratize the way underrepresented founders get access to capital. So we launched a crowdfunding campaign, and if you think about our primary demographic, they're college students. So we were able to raise $250,000 initially before raising our first $1 million just from the people. And that was super powerful because we were able to go directly to the people who would use our service, talk to them, and not like the old white guy on Sand Hill Road who didn't know what was going on, get that money, and then even have a shot at proving investors that we can do this.
How long did it take you to raise the 250?
So the campaign was 90 days.
Okay.
Yeah, and about 90% of the funds came during the first 60 days of the campaign. And so it definitely isn't you launch the campaign and then you watch the money come in. There's definitely like a lot of upkeep. So people were asking like tons of questions, like every question you can think of. And I would get so annoyed, like this one guy asked like 20 questions, but then he would invest like $20,000. And it's like this guy from the Midwest who doesn't know any of us on the team, saw our videos, saw our idea, saw the potential, and invested the funds. And so we got that first $250K. We went from Stanford to 6 campuses. We then raised $1 million from some of the top venture capitalists in the Valley, Precursor, angel investors from Andreessen Horowitz, and that gave us a shot. And I think that as we're thinking about this whole, I thought about coming into this panel, how can I be useful in what I say? I think the biggest part, if you're thinking about entrepreneurship and raising capital, is to first have the confidence that you can do this. A mentor of mine would always say that great ideas are simply when 2 old ideas come together for the first time. And when you think about it that way, almost anyone can innovate if you're noticing things enough, if you're finding, shortages in one idea and you have the opportunity to make it a little better. And that's where we should be given the opportunity. So that's where I think crowdfunding comes into play. It was transformative for us. If we didn't do it, I don't think people up and down Sand Hill Road, like they're looking for the next Mark Zuckerberg. So when they look at me, they're not like this person is gonna build the next $1 billion on-demand company. And so that was instrumental to our process, and I recommend everyone looking into it and figuring out if it's right for you.
Yeah, definitely. Give Fatima a round of applause. You have an incredible story. And And Jetpack's in the App Store now. You can download it.
Jetpack Delivery.
Yeah,
Look it up, Android, iOS.
Good stuff. So equity crowdfunding is a significant opportunity for entrepreneurs, again, because it democratizes access to capital in a way that hadn't been done previously. And also, again, relevant to this conversation because it took an act of Congress and President Obama signing the Jumpstart Our Business Startups Act to actually get it into law and it to direct the SEC to come up with to build a regulatory structure necessary to authorize, again, unaccredited investors to invest in startup companies pre-IPO. We're going to get to questions in just a second, my man, but before we do, equity crowdfunding is a good opportunity now, but there are some limitations. So entrepreneurs can only raise $1 million a year. So if you have a really big network, maybe you want to raise a little bit more. There are, of course, some regulatory hurdles that you have to jump through or jump over because you have to file with the SEC, et cetera. So Fatima, maybe starting with you, as we're thinking about ways that government, in particular maybe the federal government, can be more helpful to entrepreneurs, are there any changes or suggestions you might make? And then other panelists, I'll just go down the row. What changes or what suggestions do you have for ways that government can be more helpful to entrepreneurs, in particular diverse entrepreneurs as they're trying to raise capital?
That's a phenomenal question. So as Brandon mentioned, you can't just say, I want to start an equity crowdfunding campaign, throw up a video and start getting money. You have to go through a bunch of legal hurdles to ensure, you are making the money that you're saying you're making. You have to disclose your financials on your campaign page. And all of that work at the beginning can run from $4,000 to $6,000. And luckily for us, we used a platform called Republic that was able to put the money up for us to do that and then take it out of the money that we raised. So I think similarly to a lot of the grants that are there for first-time home buyers, I think that to help with down payments, I think that the government can essentially subsidize some of these costs early on to get a crowdfunding campaign up and running, either not get that money back or then take it back after the campaign. But I think I can see that being a limitation if we don't think about that the right way. And just more education around it. I think it's still a fairly new area. There's a lot of there's some negative stigma around it. Some people say it's dumb money. Do you want Joe Schmo on your cap table? But that's not true. Like the platform we used, the financing vehicle we used was a crowd safe, which is for people who aren't familiar with what a safe is. So there's two ways you raise money. Either you give up equity or you do it through debt. And debt, if you raise money through a convertible note, it's accruing interest over time. A SAFE, which was started by Y Combinator a couple years ago, it stands for a simple agreement for future equity. If you have not looked up SAFEs, I highly recommend it. It's one of the most powerful ways to raise early stage capital because it's essentially a convertible note that doesn't accrue interest. So you're getting the money and then you say, I'll give you the money back if I exit for over X amount of dollars, which is the thing that you negotiate. So we said we're raising $1 million through a SAFE at a $3 million valuation cap and a 20% discount. Those are the two terms in a SAFE. So I would highly recommend looking at that. And the platform.
And I'll send out information on the SAFE and ways to raise capital after this to folks at RSVP. Yeah.
And so the platform we used is a crowd SAFE. So that's how we raised it, which takes that same instrument and then distributes it to the crowd. And if you raise it that way, it's only one line on your cap table. Some people do raise through equity crowdfunding, and it's not the right way. So you have like 1 million people on your cap table, and no institutional investor wants to come afterwards. And so just be really smart about the platforms that you're looking at. So to bring it back to the question, how could government help? The first is grants to get people to start up their campaigns. And the second is more education on how you can research different platforms, what should you look for, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great. Great suggestions, Fatima. I appreciate that. Avia, do you have any suggestions, ways
Yes.
that you, in your role as a venture capitalist, how can government potentially help you, or potentially how can government help entrepreneurs?
Well, and going off of what Fatima said, how many people in this room know what a cap table is? How many people in this room know what convertible debt is? Excuse me? Oh, sorry. I feel like for a lot of people, those terms go in one ear and out the other, and I think that education is absolutely key. I think that more government platforms on, kind of the entrepreneur version of what to expect when you're expecting. When you're going to start a company, what are the things you need to do? How to build a deck, how to have an effective pitch. I think that these are all things that make a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah, definitely. Greg, you're already working.
So since I'm already government, I'll tell you.
So maybe tell us some of the things that you're working on.
Certainly, and I just want to thank Congressman Meeks and Senator Cardin for having this, because it's an important conversation, because I think there's a lot of things that we're doing in New York that could be replicated across a number of municipalities. And I believe in terms of when you talk about government putting up their balance sheet, you as entrepreneurs should be politically active. The reason why we as the City of New York has decided to focus our efforts to help minority and women-owned businesses is because we have a mayor that came in and was committed to doing that. If you are not active in your local elections, and I'm not talking about presidential elections, I'm not talking about federal or state, I'm talking about like on the ground local elections. Your council members or commissioners, whatever they're called in your district, they have the ability to control your budget. And having government at the table saying, we want to make an investment, we want to grow our small businesses. In New York City, we have over 230,000 small businesses. Over 52% of them are owned by foreign-born New Yorkers. So certainly we have to make sure that we create an opportunity for those businesses to be successful. So yes, we should put up our balance sheet, which is what we did in the City of New York, to actually either invest in funds that are going to invest in the type of companies that we're looking for to grow, or as I talked about, when we are the largest trustee of Kiva Zip. So Kiva Zip it's a loan, but it's a 0% interest rate, and we are putting up the first $1,000. So it's only up to $10,000. In some cases, that's enough for an entrepreneur to actually get their business up. But we are also putting up our balance sheet there. We put up our balance sheet to help minority and women-owned businesses that have won city contracts. So we have brought down the interest rates of loans to MWBEs. So if you have a contract with the City of New York, you can now borrow up to $1 million at a 3% interest rate. And that's basically free money. So we are literally using our balance sheet to make sure that we address this issue. Yep. And I certainly I implore you that you can certainly hold your elected officials, your government accountable to actually make those type of investments in helping grow minority and women-owned businesses.
Oh, thank you so much, Greg. One note here, we are going to do questions after Gayla and Charles respond here. So if you have questions on your mind, definitely start formulating them, and we'll get to questions right after this. Gayla, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we've done a good job in progressing the large pension funds like the CalPERS, the police firemen funds to hire diversity managers so that they're investing your savings with people that look like us. I think the next wave should be that they should also invest in venture capital assets. And by that, then they will be taking those dollars that you put into those funds and they'll be investing back in small businesses like you and I. So I think that's something that government can help sort of put a spotlight on those large funds to make sure they're investing in smaller businesses like you and I are part of their asset class. Right now it makes up, I hesitate to even say 3% of their investments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Charles, anything from you?
Yeah, so let me put my entrepreneur hat on. And when I raised money 6 years ago for Hubble Masses, which was on the label up there, that we recently exited for 37x multiple, that came from my employer. That investment came from an employer, so we didn't talk about that today. But if you are successful and you work at a business and it's an investable opportunity, I think that the government should be looking at corporations, small, medium, and large, to subsidize or tax break for individuals that might have great ideas within the business industry that they're in, that those companies would want to invest in, that would enhance the industry. I think it's a big opportunity for the individual, the corporations, and the government.
Yeah, so that makes sense. So you want to incentivize entrepreneurship to, hopefully help people transition to become entrepreneurs. That's great stuff. Okay, so we are going to do questions here in just a second, so get ready. But first, I want to introduce you to our honorary host, Congressman Gregory Meeks. He's been a champion of these issues for many, many years, representing New York's 5th District, United States Congress. Actually, just last week, I don't know if any of you saw, the SEC chair, Jay Clayton, made some comments which we're generally encouraging about getting more capital into the hands of entrepreneurs around the country. However, he did not once in those comments mention diverse entrepreneurs. He didn't mention women. He didn't mention minority-owned firms. And so Congressman Meeks saw that and wrote a letter last week to the SEC chair instructing him to follow the rules that Congress told him to do what Congress told him to do a while back and make sure that diverse entrepreneurs are covered as he's looking for ways to increase capital formations for small businesses around the country. So, ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Gregory Meeks, come on up here.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And it's good to see all of you in this room. Let me first thank, I know Senator Cardin was by, and I want to thank him for his appearance, and he listening on the Senate side, along with Senator Cory Booker, who I'm talking to him, and Kamala Harris, who everybody's running around. But I want to thank particularly Senator Cardin for coming by, and let's give Brandon a round of applause. What a job Brandon did. I was sitting around and I was listening, and I asked Ernie Jolly, who is my staffer, what was talking around, et cetera. And I know just from listening to the panelists, there's nothing more that I can add in regards to the comments. They have the knowledge, and y'all going to ask them the questions in just a few minutes. So the only thing that I want to add to this is that, and the reason why I'm glad that this room is packed, because, I want to change the paradigm. We come here often to the Congressional Black Caucus, and we feel easy and comfortable to talk about poverty. We feel easy and comfortable, and we have to do this because we do have to eliminate poverty. And it's easy and comfortable to talk about trying to make sure that we have a $15 minimum wage. But what makes me upset sometimes, they think that when we're talking about the $15 minimum wage, that's just black folk money. That's the job that we have. And we don't talk enough about the jobs and the investments and the opportunities and the access of capital that we can have. Because guess what? If we did that, we can control and help eliminate poverty ourselves. Because that's what this is all about. And so, I was listening and I looked, just yesterday was down at the Dr. King Memorial, and at the memorial, I saw one of the statements where Dr. King said, it doesn't make much sense to be able to sit at a counter to order food when you don't have any money. I also think that when I look at it and what the civil rights movement was really all about, is not that when we went to sit at that lunch counter just to eat, because what it meant, part of it, that those lunch counters that we owned in our community started to closing up. So what we needed to do is to make sure that we weren't limited to owning a lunch counter in only a certain part of the community. We want to make sure that we can own a lunch counter any place, and we can deal and work with anybody just like they can. And that's what this is all about. Yes. I want it so that we can talk about money and not feel ashamed about it. I was talking to somebody not too long ago, got educated, he was a lawyer, et cetera, and he was into finance, et cetera, and he was starting to tell me that he wanted nothing to do with Goldman Sachs. And I'm scratching my head and saying, what do you mean you want nothing? These others equivalent, they're trying to knock the door down to get to Goldman Sachs. I want to make sure that the Goldman Sachs door is open so that people like you can get in it, and then we can talk about venture capital and how we can move and finance our own businesses. It makes a difference because that's what power is. And we can make sure that there's these partnerships with government to do that. I close on this. Look, politics is my business. And there's no magic wand to it. When I sit up on the Financial Services Committee, others come to me with all kinds of issues every day of the week and want me to articulate what's important to them. And when I have the chairman of the SEC or other institutions in front of me, others come and say, I want you to ask him this question. I want you to ask him that question, which will help their interests. I want to make sure, like these individuals, the panelists, and what you're doing, I want you to be calling us to say, I want you to ask this question, and I want you to ask that question, because these are the barriers to us. And that then equals, to me, power. And what this really is, it's about power. Because when you think about it, and I think about it all the time, anytime I want to talk to somebody, if they got money, they have power, because I want to talk to them. Because I want to try to see how we can get some. But I want you to have the power so that I can talk to you. And so what we're trying to do is to change the dialogue. And for the first time in history, and here's where the politics does become important, if we win back the House in 2018, let's just talk about the Financial Services Committee alone. Quite naturally, the chair of the Financial Services Committee will be Maxine Waters. But above and atop of that, just about every subcommittee chair, I will probably have my choice of chairing capital markets or financial institutions. Emmanuel Cleaver, Gwen Moore, Lacey Clay. We're not talking about just CBC members chairing, and it's not, I'm not demeaning it or saying, but something that just deals with social services, because we still got to deal with it. But we've got to have folks that are dealing with the money and control it, because that's where the power is to make the difference. And so we decided that here we want to make sure that we're having and opening this dialogue. And some, be truthful, some said, Meeks, are you sure you want to do this thing on venture capital? Because you may not have anybody in there, because folks may not be interested in it. And I said, yes, we're going to have some people there, because we can talk about venture capital just as easy as we can talk about criminal justice. Because if we don't have justice in the financial institutions, we ain't going to get criminal justice. So I'll take my seat and let me just, they are dynamite. Aren't they dynamite? So I welcome you to the Congressional Black Caucus's annual event. And what's significant and important to us, yes, we want you to have a good time, and I know everybody's bugging me about this party ticket or that party ticket. So we want you to get that party on, and we're going to make sure. But I want to make sure we also get some substance on.
That's right.
And this is about substance, because I don't want anybody to leave the Congressional Black Caucus and say it's just a party thing. No, the party thing is what we're going to rejoice after we did the knowledge thing. And that's what this is all about. So thank you and enjoy.
Thank you again, Congressman Meeks, for your decades of leadership on these issues, and again, for being our honorary host today. I want to open it up for Q&A, but first, I know I asked it at the beginning of the session. I want to ask it one more time. How many entrepreneurs do we have in here? Okay. Now, but before I do this, Congressman Meeks just said people blowing him up about tickets. I don't have tickets to anything. But the first two entrepreneurs to text me the name of your business, I'm going to give you my business number, text me, we'll get to pitch your business at the end of this Q&A. I'm going to give you 90 seconds, and we'll give you some feedback. You're not raising your hand, you're listening to what I'm saying. I'm going to give you the number. Everybody got your phone ready? Okay. It's 202-831-3031. text me your name of your business. The first two, again, we'll get to pitch for 90 seconds at the end of our QA, all right? Give it to you one more time, 202-831-3031, all right? And while we're doing Q&A, I'll look in and see what kind of responses we get. Brother, can you help us out with the microphone again? This brother here has had a question since the beginning of the session. Wait a second. Just wait on the mic. One second. So give us your name. If you have a business, tell us the business name, and then ask the question.
So my name is Greg Crossfield. I went to Stanford as well. I wanted to note that one of the companies I funded is JetBlue, and I've had several other companies that we've been doing one-off deals on. So I wanted to warn you guys of something that's called the 10X rule. So I have people coming to me constantly for deals, and one of the rules of the Valley you should be aware of is the 10X rule. And what that means is that, think of Google. The difference between a phone book and Google is not just 10X, that's 100X difference. The more X's you have, the more fundable you are by a venture capitalist. The lower the number of X's makes you non-fundable. So if your idea is 5X better than what the consumer currently has, you've jumped into angel investing zone. When you get to 2X, that's your credit card or your mom's credit card, okay? So I want to warn you guys on this because all these folks are brilliant here and their ideas are brilliant, but you want to be aware of the 10X rule because it's a pain in the butt to try to go to people when they're going to ask you, what's your barrier to entry? A great example, if you want to think this through, if you want to be a venture capitalist. I'm sorry. The question I had as a statement is simply the fact that right now there's another model that Stanford came up with. An example is batteries.com. And what you can do is if you have an idea, you can present it to Stanford Business School, and they'll build the company for you and give you equity in it. So I just wanted to highlight the fact that there are a lot of different models, angel investing being one of them, and also there are many schools where we've got plenty of talent. The issue is having the ideas and talent and people to come together because they've got plenty of money and plenty of talent. They need ideas from us. So I just wanted to note the whole idea of the 10X rule. And all you guys I know operate by that because it creates the barrier to entry you need for it to be a venture fundable company. Thank you.
So let me ask you something now, brother, before you give me a round of applause. If someone wants to get connected to this program at Stanford, so they have an idea or they have some intellectual property, they want to get a piece of the deal, but they're not interested in building the business, how would they get connected to that?
I want to invite all of you to check out something called, if you type in Stanford and then proactive skincare, if you go into a Google bar, what that'll bring you to is the e-corner at Stanford. And so that facility has over 400 entrepreneurs and companies that describe how they built their businesses. But what's nice about it is that it sort of windows you in on a lot of the Stanford resources of all types that support entrepreneurship and their ability to get businesses going.
That's great. Thank you so much, sir. All right. I'll give my friend here in the back. Again, just give us your name of your company if you have one, and then ask your question.
I'm Lori Elliott. I'm with Global Stratus, and I'm sorry I don't have a question. But just a quick...
Okay, but keep it quick.
It is quick. So basically, they were talking about there's debt or equity, but there's actually another way that's not debt nor equity. It's based on asset-based capital. And you don't have the limitations nor the regulatory restrictions that are in the current systems. And so that's something that we're specializing in, so I won't get into all the detail, but there are other pathways that you can use. And this can use and take advantage of people's 401k. They transfer it into self-directed funds, and they can put money to projects. And there's over $7 trillion that are sitting at low interest, like 1% or whatever they're getting on their bank. A lot of people are low interest. So there are additional alternative pathways to get startup capital.
That's great. Thank you so much. Young lady here in the blue. Again, give us the name of your business, and ask your question.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Onita Coward Mayers, and I am here today because I believe in my son. He's 19 years old. He has his own business. He does have a safe. He has a mutual NDA. He has a very small list of accredited investors.
Are you pitching for your son or asking a question?
And I am both.
Well, I
would
need you to
like
ask the
to
question
know
first.
if
We
it's
can pitch later.
possible for my son to be in contact with any of you, with all of you.
Yeah, I think
how to do that.
I'll let the investors on the panel comment on where they're at in terms of their funds, whether they're seeking deals now, and they can share whatever contact information they'd like.
I'm always interested in talking to someone that has an opportunity, so I'll give you my information at the end of this.
Same here. I would love to hear about your son's idea.
Likewise, and I have postcards here, and if you guys put your name and your email on there, you'll get a T-shirt, and we'll be connected that way. And I've got 80 T-shirts that I do not want to have to take back on the plane.
Okay, my brother here in the brown, and then we'll do one more, and then we'll have the entrepreneurs pitch. I'll go ahead and share one of the entrepreneurs that's going to be pitching. Where's Johnny Williams, Groove LLC? Where are you at? All right. He was quick, fast fingers. So Johnny will be one of the two entrepreneurs that'll get an opportunity to pitch here at the end of our QA. But brother, go ahead, give us your name and ask your question.
Al White. Some of you have seen me before. I was at the beginning of the internet, and I've had 5 companies. I give a lot of advice to companies on technology. I want to comment on a point that we kind of overlooked today. This woman here is marketing her son. How many people would do that? We don't do that enough. We got to really do a lot of that. He's a dreamer just like everybody else in this room. So let me go to my question now. I know we talked about startups in this room. But there's another side of this too. And there's acquisitions. And I'm involved in acquisition right now. So, I was kind of curious to know, have you been involved in people coming to you where they wanted to buy a business rather than start a business? So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, so I recently sold 2 within the last 90 days. So yes, absolutely. I don't know.
Anyone else want to comment on that? I know different investors do different types of deals, and maybe you have folks coming to you, Greg, in New York asking about deal flow.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. What we're doing in the city of New York, obviously we have a lot of businesses that are aging out, individuals who are looking to cash out of their business, and what we're trying to do is create opportunities for the employees to actually buy and acquire those businesses. So you're going to see a lot of worker cooperative type initiatives, employee ownership programs coming out of the city of New York to figure out a way we can maintain that business but actually empower the workers.
And there's things called search funds, which actually began at Stanford many years ago, which is you essentially are also fundraising, but you're fundraising to purchase a company, and then you take that company and continue to grow it. And why that's pretty important is that many people want to be entrepreneurs, but it's important to figure out if your skill set is best suited in the early stage or in the later stage of a company. And so that is another extremely viable option as well.
Yeah, so search funds, write that down. Gayla, you have something?
Yeah, I just want to say, while I'm not a Stanford alum, we have a lot of HBCUs and other universities and higher institutions that are supporting entrepreneurs. And so as you're looking for either to get help with your company or you're looking to invest, reach out to either HBCUs because they've got a whole venture capital initiative that they are launching, as well as all universities are involved in this space. So think about that as well. And then just to add to what you said, I'm really glad you stopped us in that moment, because I truly believe that when we talked earlier, and I talked about us being investors and investable, that we have all the resources in our community to invest and grow companies. I didn't leave a good job at JP Morgan on a whim. I know that the next Google, Facebook, or Snapchat is in our community, and it is being built right now. But I'll tell you this, we have got to be intentional in how we uplift that company. So even when I left JP Morgan to start my company and start this venture fund, I said, I'm gonna find a black accountant, I'm gonna find a black lawyer, the t-shirts I'm gonna hand out as a black company, right? That's intention. Now, yes, you can go get things at Walmart and it's easier. And you know, sometimes dealing with our people is what that's like. But we have to be patient and we have to uplift these small businesses. And so if that means the website looks a little janky, so be it. But buy that product. I had a girlfriend who's got a plus-size clothing company. And she was like, Gayla, I gotta make payroll, I need some sales. I went on the website. Let me say this right, because she might hear this. There wasn't anything that really was my style, and I haven't worn a dress in 15 years, and that was on my wedding day. But I bought a dress. It's hanging up in my closet. It's $350 I'll never get back. But that was me investing in a sister. So thank you for bringing that point up.
Thank you.
I believe that investing in our community is very important, but I also think that collaboration is key. If we're not doing this together with people outside of our community, there's no way that we can get to the top as fast as we should be able to.
Yeah, that's definitely true. We're going to do one more question, and then we'll have our entrepreneurs come up and pitch. Where is Kim Moore? She was the second person to text me. Kim, okay, you're right there. So she'll come up and be the second entrepreneur to pitch. Questions, brother? Yeah, yeah. Then wait 1 second on the mic here, and just give us your name and then ask your question.
Thank you. My name is Arnold King. I own a business called King Consulting Solutions. And my two questions are, can small business and nonprofit get the venture capital or they limited? Get into venture capital or they limited? And number two, how to understand how venture capital works, how to learn it.
So you want to? So just to clarify here, you want to know how do you get education on how venture capital works?
I think he was asking, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, how venture capital works, and then how can small businesses and nonprofits have access to venture capital?
Yes,
Okay,
Right.
yeah. Anyone on the panel who'd like to respond? Thank you. That's a great question.
One tool that I found extremely helpful outside of my education and mentorship, one book that I would recommend you all read, it's called Venture Deals, Smarter Than Your Lawyer. It's awesome. It'll help you understand all of the VC talk, so I highly recommend that. And nonprofits and small businesses. So nonprofits usually are not investable companies for VCs, and then small businesses, like the gentleman over there said, also probably not, unless they're scalable, businesses that VCs will invest in. The 10X rule does apply. So, you know, for us, it's a business investment. We want to get our money back, and we want to get our money back many times over.
And the internet is the great equalizer. So there's almost anything you want to know, it's online somewhere. There's podcasts, videos. If you just type in, just make sure not to go on the Investopedia. Like, there's a lot of false information out there as well. But yeah, start with the internet.
Yeah, and I'm happy to send out some educational resources to everyone that RSVP'd here, and we'll use the hashtag #InvestedALC to share some of those online as well. But
so 15 seconds, since I'm the only government representative up here, I would be remiss to say that depending on what city you're in, the federal government through the Small Business Administration funds They call it SBDC, so Small Business Development Centers. So if you're a small business and you're not ready to have a conversation with a venture capital, but you need help to sort of how to build your business, I would encourage you to use those resources. They're free. Well, I said they're at no cost because your tax dollars have actually funded that, so you may as well use it. But it's small business development centers, and they're usually on the campus of an academic institution because of what Gayla said in terms of academic institutions focused on building small businesses.
Yeah, that's great
And
information.
my company, we do investment workshops. And so when you go to our website, intentmanifesto.com, starting in October, we'll have a series of workshops that walk you through how to become an investor, and also then on the other side for entrepreneurs, how to get financing.
And Gayla's actually going to give us a quick intro to investing after our two entrepreneurs pitch. So, my man, you want to come up here to the front? Give him a round of applause as he comes forward. Okay, no, it's all good. It's all good. All right, so his company is super secret and he can't share it with everybody. He doesn't trust you. So, which is fine. Which is fine. So I'm going to pick someone else, but Kim, would love to have you come up and pitch your business. My man with the mic, can you bring the mic over to Kim? Thank you. And you can just stand right here. My brother here will sit down here in a second, so everyone will be able to see you. And I will give you again 90 seconds to pitch your business. Okay, so stand right here in the middle and give us your name, the name of your business, and then you can take it away.
Hello? Okay, there we go. My name is Kimberly Moore, and I'm CEO and co-founder of Go Together, where we're a transportation technology company that's helping people get where they need to go together. So how many of you are parents? And how many of you sit in the carpool lane for hours, minutes? Well, our first product in the market is Carpool to School. And it's a SaaS platform, a software as a service platform that schools subscribe to help their parents do what they're already doing, carpooling. So instead of being mystified by who lives near me and who can I carpool with, our technology is co-branded with the school's logo, so the parent has an exclusive network where they can reach people who are outside of their friends and family and be able to carpool not only to school, but after school activities. And as a matter of fact, beyond carpooling, you could walk or bike together if you're in an urban setting like DC, and we just launched the ability for parents to arrange for their kids to take the metro together in Atlanta, Georgia. Our premise really is that we can democratize education by making transportation the barrier that gets removed for all kids that need to get to school. We are on Monday introducing another product in the market, Go Together to Vote. One of the barriers to voting is getting there. So we were challenged by an investor 1 month ago to build the product. So we're basically going to customize our current application and work with campaigns, PACs, and parties so that they can reach their constituents and harness the power of those people to drive people to vote and for those people to get a ride to vote.
That's great. Give Kim a round of applause. Thank you. All right. I'll do this really quickly. Any burning questions from the panel about Kim's business?
I just want to say that's extremely compelling and so powerful. Thank you.
Thank you.
But I also wanted to know what your revenue model was.
Yes, so the school or the campaign, the entity is our customer, not the consumer. We're a B2B platform. And so we have an annual subscription that the school signs up for based on their enrollment and a one-time onboarding fee. So it's, let's say it's $1,900 a year. and based on the number of students in there, it goes up.
And you guys are just in Atlanta at the moment?
No, as a matter of fact, I didn't say that. We are in 48 schools in 25 states across the country.
Good. Really quickly.
How much capital have you guys raised?
We've raised $325,000, and we're closing our pre-seed round. We have 125 left. See me afterwards if you're interested.
See me after.
I will.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll do one more. Monica Rodriguez, Baltimorean. Are you
So
here?
I just want to say one thing while Monica's on her way up. This lady is the real deal. I've been following her and her company. Kim, how long is it that you guys reached out to me? I think maybe a year ago or so. Yes, about a year ago. No, see, I've been following her. She's the real deal. And one of the things that she said, and I just want to put a underline, is that she's also pivoted within her business model. That get together to vote, that wasn't in her original business plan. But she adapted and she pivoted based on what the market wanted and what a pain point is. And she's solving that pain point. So, awesome.
Okay, no Monica. Let's see here. What do we got? Yvette Bennett. Yvette Bennett Mizigo. Is that how you pronounce it? Now, this isn't being live streamed, so it can't be people online. All right, let me go to the next person then. All good. Let's see here. Cleve Dunn Jr., good cop. Okay, come on up here, Cleve. Yeah, give me a round of applause. Okay, Cleve, so you're gonna have 90 seconds. Give us your name of your business, and then you can take it away.
My name is Cleve Dunn Jr. I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Yes.
The name of the business is Good Cop. Good Cop is a rating app that rates officer interactions with the community. We see all around the country where we have interaction with law enforcement officers with people of color that go wrong. We believe that Michael Brown, that Alton Sterling, Trayvon Martin situation doesn't just pop out of the sky. We believe there are indicators that happen prior to that. And we also believe law enforcement knows what those indicators are, but they are the ones that are currently tracking this information. So what we want to do is give the power to the people, to the consumer, to track that information. Everyone has an app, everyone has a smartphone, so you have the ability to talk about or report your interaction with the law enforcement officer. Notice we named the app Good Cop because we want you to report the good interactions as well as the bad interactions. And we believe we can prevent an Alton Sterling, a Trayvon Martin, a Michael Brown situation if we intervene, if we see those indicators that suggest that something is going wrong with this law enforcement officer. We can get his superiors involved, his or her, and we can do some training and some continued education to prevent those negative interactions from happening.
All right, great job. I just want to pause here. You can wait 1 second. Just want to pause here and say he shared a lot of information, and he still had 15 seconds left. I saw some of your eyes get big when I said 90 seconds to be able to pitch, but you should be able to fit everything in there. I'm sure I'll go to the panel really quickly for maybe a couple of questions if anyone has them. If not, then we'll move on.
How do you make money?
Yeah.
Our revenue model is to generate the users and sell advertisement. We're in the very beginning stages. She is very much farther than we are. We actually not even to market yet. We're looking for angel investors and other investors to bring us to market. If you followed Baton Rouge and the Alton Sterling situation, most of us are activists, business owners who was actively involved with holding our local government and law enforcement accountable for that situation. But we did two things. We took our protests and transitioned that to policy change, which we work with our elected officials to bring about criminal justice reform, police reform on a local and the state level. But we've also taken that next step to take the policy change and look at our pain point, which is this issue, and turn it to profits.
How far are you from MVP?
I was just about to ask that.
We just got started. We're basically in the research and development phase. So
Do you need help with development?
We definitely do.
Let's talk.
Okay, great. Give him a round of applause. Thank you, please. Give me this brother right here. Okay, so again, great job to those two entrepreneurs. I know we have other entrepreneurs in the room. We have a couple that apparently sent me text and then decided to leave, but that's okay. They'll get an opportunity to pitch maybe next year if we do this session. Going to transition here in a second to Gayla, who's going to lead a intro to angel investing session. We don't have a whole lot of time, but the time we have left, Gayla will do that. But before we do that, I want to start with Charles. If you have contact information you want to share, or how can people get in touch with you? How can they connect with any work that you're doing if you're interested in connecting with folks here?
Sure. Charles@can2holdings.com.
Great. Charles@can2holdings.com. CANTU, right?
That's right.
There you go. Gayla, anything? Well, you can talk in a second, but you can go ahead. Great.
So, because I'm hyper-local in a city of 8.6 million people, but if you are from New York, definitely willing to help you. So my email address is gbishop@sbs.nyc.gov. But if you have any questions in general, we have a really good relationship with all the SBDCs across the country. So I can connect you to if there's an SBDC in your local market, if you need assistance in terms of helping grow your business.
You can all find me on LinkedIn. It's Avia, which is A, B as in boy, Y, A-H. The last name is W, Y as in yo-yo, N-N. And then my email address, it's a long one, so if you want to write it down, feel free. It's abyyn@trimantium.com. Really? One more time. Okay. It's ABYAH. Oh, never mind. It's fine. ABYAH dot WYNN at trimantium.com. So that's Trimantium Capital, and my name is Avia Wen.
Great.
If you're interested in keeping in touch and learning about our progress, either Twitter is Fatima Deco _ and my email is fatima@jtpk.co.
Okay, and also download our app.
Download the app.
Great. Give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you. All right. So, as I mentioned, Gayla is going to lead. Oh, yeah. Video. We'll do the video first. Gayla has a video. So let me do that first. 1 second here.
Manifesto has always been inside me somewhere. This desire to want to champion for others. I think it started to become really crystal clear when I had cancer in my eye and thinking, if I live, I want to do something with my life that has purpose. I've had success professionally and personally, but what have I done for others?
And what really gave me that confidence to do it was when I looked at people like my mother. So you asked me about my background. My background actually starts with my mother, Thelma Bataille, who was in many respects like the hidden figures that you saw on the big screen.
As I made that journey through Silicon Valley, there were very few minorities in those companies. In fact, I could count on one hand the number of women, on two hands the number of women and men in those companies. As I look at what's happening today, until we really identify the problem, we will not change it.
When you look at the number of women of color that are launching startups, that are growing businesses, that are creating jobs and stabilizing neighborhoods and families, about 800 companies a day are started by women of color.
I think manifesto is so important because, as we know, less than a total of 2% of all venture capital dollars are going to either women or founders of color.
The mission is to transform the market realities for women entrepreneurs of color, specifically in the tech space, because that's where innovation and growth is happening.
The mission that we're on with Intent Manifesto is to move $1 billion of capital to women of color tech entrepreneurs. So if you're watching this and you're a tech VC, shift your portfolio. Show me the African American woman who's going to be the next unicorn. I want to meet her, and I want you to help me.
And so here we are with this significant need in the market, with this significant opportunity in the technology arena, and this dire need to teach our young women the power of building companies and the conviction and giving them the conviction that if they do that, there will be ecosystems and there will be capital surrounding them to be able to go and do that.
We have to be intentional about how we support women of color so that they're no longer hidden figures, so that they're no longer invisible, and so that the world can benefit from the beauty and gifts that they have to offer. I believe that the next Facebook, Microsoft is being built right now by a woman of color. And that if we, society, don't stand with her and support her, we're all gonna miss out on what amazing technology, products, and services she may be creating.
If you want to stay seated, I can scroll for you, or you can stand up. Okay, great. Well, we'll have maybe 10, 15 minutes for this, but it'll be a quick introduction to how to be an angel investor, and take it away, Kayla. Thank you.
Thank you. So, intentionality, the guys that produce that are a young group of black and brown boys out of the Bronx. The funding for that came from JP Morgan, because when I told them about my leaving and starting this fund, they said, great, we'll invest. And I said, that's great, you're gonna give me money to make more money for you. I said, but where I need you to start the conversation and the support is on making us no longer hidden. And so I said, I will go out and I will get signatures to show you that people care about this population. And they said, all right, go for it. So what I want to ask all of you in this room is if you could please go to the Intent Manifesto website, Intent Manifesto, and put in your email so that I can go back to JP Morgan. I can arm Congressman Meeks with the signatures that say, here's a gazillion people that care about black women startups. And you also get a t-shirt. But really quickly, what I wanted to do is talk about black wealth. You know how we started this conversation, right, when I level set for us what we were going to talk about today. One of the reasons why I said this is our moment and why it's so important is because while it feels like we're gaining and it feels like the economy is growing, if we really strip away the data and the facts and the brands and the cars and the good hair, the gap is getting larger in terms of wealth. And so I'm in New York, I'm gonna talk real fast, but I wanna talk a little bit about this, and I want us to have some more conversations later about this. And partly how we're gonna do that is we're gonna have workshops, and so when you're on our website, you'll see these workshops that will be giving you more information, but I'm gonna give you just a quick overview right now. And so to do that, I wanna talk about a little bit about why we need to be looking at this now and the market realities, and then I'm just gonna pepper you a little bit about thinking about yourselves as investors. So the market realities. In savings, black families are saving about 7% versus their white counterparts that are about 42% are saving. Investing, only about 10% of us are investing. That's either your 401k, that's your pension, that's an IRA, that's real estate.
And what's happening is that wealth gap is growing. Black families have a net worth of about $61,000 versus white families who have a net worth of about $422,000. Now, let me break that down a little bit further. A white family that is in the federal definition of poverty still has a net worth of about $10,000 versus black families at $1,000. Now that's a little hard to wrap your head around, right? Poverty, but there's still some net worth there, right? There's still some assets. And these numbers I'm giving you translate to about a 200-year gap before we can level the playing field. 200-year gap before we can level this. Also, data says that in another few years, black wealth will be erased down to about 0. So we can still keep doing all the things we're doing, right? And even though this sounds a little depressing, I want to turn it around and make this a positive story because we have the opportunity to close this gap. And some of this we're doing now, but we got to be intentional. So how do people invest? There's a few ways. One is cash, right, which is the power to buy anything. There's equity, which is the ownership in a business. There's fixed income, which is to lend money to others. And there's real estate. I'm going to come back to equity, but on the real estate side, there's a 2016 report out that we are losing ground in black home ownership. We are at a 20-year low. Only 41% of us own homes. That is at the level of the Great Depression, 1930. So again, we've got to start thinking differently of how we leapfrog ahead. And my theory of change is investing. Investing in companies, investing in startups, and just investing in ourselves. And so in the equity, ownership in a business, the place where I want to focus on is this angel and venture funds. And think about some of these companies. Their humble beginnings, household names that you know, they started with that friends and family round. They started with that crowdfunding. The companies on this slide, many of you know, these are now billion-dollar-plus valuation companies. They're called unicorns. Fatima was talking about being a black unicorn. That's a company that has over $1 billion valuation. And here's the other thing about these companies. Most of them were started within the last 20-plus years. If you leave with nothing else today, think about this. Uber, down on the bottom there, if we had all taken $100 in 2010, by 2015, we would be a millionaire. Just $100. I think we can do that again today in a company that's probably sitting in this room right now. But I will say, and this is something that Brandon talked about, is that it's going to take the Jobs Act. So let's please remember that that is going to be, and we will make it be, Obama's legacy. Because now we have the opportunity, when that next Uber opportunity comes around, we can put that $100 in and have an opportunity to make $1 million in just 5 years. So I don't want to go too far into angel investing, but I will say, think about it this way. One, it is going to drive wealth in our community for you and the companies you invest in. It's going to create jobs. Yes, you can do the philanthropy and the charitable work, but you can create wealth for yourself, for your family, for that entrepreneur, and you can also hit your charitable goals through your tithing when you start to invest in other startups. So I don't want to go too much into this, but I want to leave you with a couple thoughts around where this investing can happen and where you can get involved. One is family and friends and crowdfunding that you heard about. Others is angel investment clubs. Others is investing in funds like myself and like my colleagues here on this panel have. And we talked a little bit about earlier on about how to get your company investable. I want to leave you with just 3 things. People are going to look at the team. They're going to look at the market. And you saw some of the questions that were asked of
the two pitches that came up here, and they're going to look at the model. What's your business model? Where's your revenue coming from? And if people are investing, this was told earlier, that 10x, it's here on this slide, right? That's real. Oh, well, and it's so the question was, can you explain what 10x is? In simplest terms, from an investor, if I give you $1, I want you to be able to generate $10. That's in simplest terms. Now, we talked about an opportunity, and I know I kept coming back to women, but here's the reality, what's going on with women and where the opportunity is. 800 firms are being launched today by women of color. They're leaving their jobs, they're leaving their babies at home, they're leaving their husbands, their man, and they are launching companies, and they need us. 5 million existed last year, just women of color. They generated $360 billion in revenue. But guess what? The venture capital industry only deemed a handful of them, less than 40 of them, worthy of investments. We can do something about this, because if we invest, the potential is they will grow to 1.1 trillion. You know how I talked about job creation? They will create an additional 3.8 million. And this is just annual, right? This isn't over like some time period. This is just if we get our act together and invest in them, they can grow to this in a year. So as you guys leave here today, I wish I had t-shirts that said, I'm an investor, but I hope you leave here thinking about how you can be an investor as well. So how to get started? We got to believe in wealth. Wealth is ours. Wealth is what we can create. We all got to review our finances, me included. We got to do our homework, so we're going to have more on our website about that. And then we can activate our networks. We are an ecosystem. We can support one another. And lastly, we can have fun with this. I get up with joy every day knowing that I'm out there supporting each other. So this can be fun. So I'm going to leave you with a couple things. Reading material, a couple books. One is called Angel. Another one is called Startup Wealth. And another one is called Competitive Strategy. And then there's a few other online resources. One that's not on here, and one I want to leave you with, if you buy no book but this, it's called Black Fortunes. And it's funny because it came to me through my banker, and when it came in the mail, I was like, oh, I haven't heard of this. Go check it out. What it is, it's a book about the first freed slaves and how they generated their $1 million. If you want to be inspired, think of a slave who was a former slave, then going on to create $1 million in wealth. And one of the first that they profile is the sister. Black Fortunes. Please go check it out. I'm going to wrap up here and just leave my contact information and ask you again to sign the manifesto and to stay in touch, because this time next year, I would love for us to have just either at the party or here in this room, talking about companies that we supported, whether it's with our investable dollars or how we employed them or we purchased or we bought from them. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you again, Gayla. I know we all took something from that quick intro into investing, specifically angel investing, and there's certainly, if you go to Intent Manifesto, a lot more information there about becoming an investor and including how to use equity crowdfunding to either raise funds or invest capital into businesses. Thank you again for joining us today. Do me one favor. Our hashtag is #InvestAtALC. If you took photos today, if you have thoughts about the conversation, you want to follow up with entrepreneurs in the room, etc., please use that as you're sharing. Would love to hear your thoughts and feedback on the conversation today. And yes, Gayla, I will be following up with everyone who RSVP'd if I have your email, and setting some goals for next year. I think Congressman Meeks, our honorary host, was pleased with the session, pleased with all the entrepreneurs in the room, and so hopefully we can do something like this again and yes, talk about some of the progress that we've made at CBCF ALC 2019. So with that, give our panel one more round of applause. And I hope every entrepreneur in here is encouraged by the conversation today. Please continue to work on your business, continue to grow your business, and text me if you're interested in Shark Tank. Everybody here has my number. All right? Have a good one.